Hi, and welcome to week 9 of English 1302. Can you believe we're past the halfway point of this semester? We've got spring break next week, and the semester is just kind of moving along at a nice clip. For this week, we had two short stories, The Story of an Hour and The Yellow Wallpaper, and we've got a quiz this Thursday, and you've got your Research 2 assignment. The research assignment sheet is due the Sunday before spring break starts, Sunday, March the 16th. But you don't have to work on it that weekend. If you want to start your spring break on Friday, you can. Just go ahead and get your paper done and turned in before the last minute, which is always a good idea. Let's talk real quickly about those two short stories. Both of these short stories are pretty straightforward. The Story of an Hour hinges on irony, and you have to be able to read between the lines because the main idea is nowhere in the story. You have to read the story and kind of figure out what the main idea is. It's only got a couple of main characters. Really, Mrs. Millard is the main character, and now you need to read one part of it. It's a short story. Um, Story of an Hour is about a lady whose husband dies, and she has an epiphany, and she says she knew she would cry again when she looked upon that face that never looked on hers without love. The word sans, S-A-N-S, means without. He never looked at her without loving her. He was not physically abusive. Now, he was controlling because his society, he lived at a time called the Age of Men, where men were expected to make the decisions. You were expected to do the hard work of taking the weight of making decisions off of your poor little wife and make the call and tell her what to wear and what to cook and where we're going on vacation. And, don't expect her to make those tough calls. You're supposed to make those for her if you're a good husband. And that's what he did because he wanted to be a good husband. And it says that she loved him sometimes. So she loved him sometimes, and he always loved her. Now, you have to get to the end of the story to really get to the irony. And please try not to interpret this story with the lens of our culture, because we would see his actions as being abusive. In his culture, they weren't. He would have been a model husband, a prize husband, because he really loved his wife and he really wanted to take care of her and do what was best for her. Just a mistake. And she says, some people enjoy being taken care of, but there are some people who cannot stand to have their will bent under a more powerful will. But this is an interesting little short story. And then The Yellow Wallpaper is a story about postpartum depression. If you don't know what that is, I encourage you to kind of look it up, do a little bit of research. It's really a fascinating condition. It's a very sad condition, but it is a serious form of depression following the birth of a baby. I've heard a couple times that every woman suffers from postpartum depression after the delivery of her baby. Some to a small extent, some to a great extent, some for a short time, some for a long time. But this is the story about this one lady who had hers really, really badly mistreated, and she goes completely crazy. If you, and I feel like I should be yelling spoiler alert every 5 minutes, but if you look at the end of that story, The Yellow Wallpaper, you'll notice that she locks herself in her room and she has a piece of rope. Then she throws the key out the window. He goes to get the key, lets himself in, and then this is told first person from the narrator, from the lady who's crazy. She says, "Oh, and he fainted." She killed him. Yeah, he's noose around the neck, just like poor Mr. Wright. He did. So yeah, she killed him, and then she has to crawl over his body every time she creeps around the room. But again, you need to kind of, on that one, you really have to read between the lines because you have to remember that it's being told, well, this would be an unreliable narrator, but it's told by a crazy person who's going through a lot of stuff, because again, her husband really loves her and he's really trying to do what's best for her. He just fundamentally misunderstands what is best for her. Ends up costing him his life. Based on a real event, based on written by a woman who went through a lot of this, not all of it, but still a fascinating story. Okay, don't forget the quiz on Thursday, and your research paper is due Sunday before spring break. On your research paper, be sure your thesis, last sentence in the introduction, mentions the name of the story, barn burning is in quotation marks, and the vocabulary word, you got 18 to choose from, that you're using, and then the point you're going to make about it. For example, in barn burning, setting reinforces the isolation of the individual, or in barn burning, the symbol of fire helps the reader to understand the character of Abner Snopes. Whatever the point you're trying to make, and it doesn't have to be this profound, earth-shaking, major doctoral thesis type of idea. Just something obvious. Just make it plain, make it clear. You're going to do a little bit of research, 2 sources. Go to Google Scholar, just type in barn burning, and then your vocabulary word, barn burning theme, or barn burning irony, or barn burning setting, and you'll get about 2,000 hits, of which you want to pick 2, and quote each one once. Build a paragraph around that quote explaining what it says and how it supports the point you're trying to make. Don't forget to put your quote in quotation marks, and then that is followed immediately by a parenthetical or in-text citation, which has the author's last name and the page number. All right, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will post up a sample paper so you can see what your paper should look like. If you have any questions, drop me an email, and I'll talk to you later.